the one and only man above. My friend, you gotta wake up, brother, open your eyes. You gotta wake up, it's time you realize. You gotta wake up, brother, open your eyes. You gotta wake up, it's time you realize. Now, Mr. Main, I tell you this.
Look at this thing. How intense these boxes are. Super powerful. Just put up right over Christmas time. Everybody's busy doing stuff. What is that thing on top? What is that? Look at these power lines. Massive power lines. Super energy. They go this way, but then they don't go this way. And we come over, you can see how these massive power lines come down into here. And then right next to it, they got a huge power source that's zapping as I'm filming. That's connected to it all. So it goes up, it goes over, it goes around, and then it comes down and goes back into the ground. What the fuck, folks? This is from Dave Bryant in the comments section of one of my posts. AT&T is rolling out 5G VR Wi-Fi this year, so is Verizon. Understand that all previous cellular services were labeled according to their radio frequency location on the radio spectrum. 3G, third generation, 3 gigahertz. 4G, fourth generation, 4 gigahertz. This was done deliberately for the purpose of concealing the fact that 5G, fifth gen, get this, operating in the 24 gigahertz to 90 gigahertz. 3G, fourth generation, 4G, 4 gigahertz, up to 24 gigahertz to 90 gigahertz. This is the military wave based on length of wave section of the spectrum. It is classified as extremely high frequency non-ionizing radiation. The compact nature of millimeter waves results in heavy interference from just about everything. This limits the distance a signal can travel as well as being on the line of sight only. Water molecules in the air, for example, cause heavy loss in signal strength. The only way to compensate for these issues and still deliver the bandwidth promised with the Internet of Things is to have 5G Wi-Fi routers on every telephone pole in the country, in every room of every public building in the country, boosted by every CFL compact fluorescent light bulb on the box and smart meter. Even satellites for those in the sticks, if we had satellites. If you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, I'm 70% water, then you're asking yourself exactly the right question. Trump believes in geoengineering, and he just put out the statement in December declaring all sorts of things you can do with 5G to be a national priority, like they have done so many times before. This time so they can pull off the most lethal thing ever done to this planet. Every living thing is harmed by this level of non-ionizing radiation. As the densely packed waves bounce off the cells in your body, they cause minor damage. As your body repairs this damage, occasionally this process results in cancer. It breaks the strands of your DNA. The reason they put lead vests on when you get an x-ray is exactly the reason they refuse to do any safety testing on 5G. They didn't need to. They know that the 24 gigahertz to 90 gigahertz will not so slowly kill you, especially at the levels of signal saturation required to reach everywhere. They know, let me repeat that again, they know that 24 gigahertz to 90 gigahertz will not so slowly kill you, especially at the levels of signal saturation required to reach everywhere. The signals that come from the small cell transmitters have the ability to engage multiple separate pinpoint focused beams that automatically track every Wi-Fi receiving device that comes into its signal range for the purpose of connectivity. The military has been using military wave technology for at least 40 years. They just need you, me, and everyone else to look the other way while they deploy it. The final step in the separation is turn the Earth into an artificial existence that nothing can survive unless it has been modified from its original form in order to do so. Everything with DNA is going to be bombarded in the microwave hell they are creating. The final nail in mankind's coffin, and the only way to survive the system is going to be through genetic modification transhumanism. Once we, quote, jack in, end quote, to the system will control our memories, emotions, and thoughts, and we will no longer have any memory of what life was like before the system. Every president in my lifetime has been used as a wedgie to drive apart the American people. The last 2 presidents have been atomic wedgies in that regard. Thank you, Dave Bryant, for that commentary. Hey folks, and welcome to another video from aplaintruth.info. A very, very important video and concerns us all. This is being rolled out, deployed without consensus, without efficacy as to harm and to injury to humans, and just being done, as you'll see in a little while. But I hope that intro got your attention. So this is where they're being deployed and how they're deploying them. They're starting in California. They're doing other states too, but California seems to be a target. As I've stated in previous videos, Sacramento, they're installing, Palo Alto, and here in Santa Rosa. 10 key issues for California cities on the damage, challenges with small cells and not so small cells. With only a few days left in 2016 state legislative session, the wireless industry gutted and amended a proposed California law, AB 27788, on safe natural gas storage, into a law that would have allowed cell towers rent-free in front of your bedroom window of your driveway, without any limits on height, limits on potentiality, large and noisy cooling fans, cabinets for computers and batteries, or diesel generators on your sidewalk. The bill failed large in part thanks to the American Planning Association, blah, blah, blah. Apparently it did pass, but then Brown vetoed it. But as you can see in a little while, that doesn't matter. They're still doing it. The laws don't apply to these guys. In the spring of 2017, Traders Ben Huso introduced Senate Bill 639, would allow wireless sites on private property and the public right-of-way, streets and sidewalks with almost no discretion over issues like design, equipment noise, exhaust from backup diesel generators, aircraft lighting, or proximity of large cabinets to bedroom windows when mounted on poles or residential driveways when mounted on the ground. The language appears to be written by AT&T and Verizon. Gee, what a surprise. Nonetheless, small cells and not so small cells are headed your way. This is your crash course. So here on the right, you're going to see a picture. This is in Moraga, California, in Oakland, where it looks like they've deployed it. And those are the pictures I just took. And these other ones are coming in the top, but the more egregious ones, the more powerful ones are here. And they're definitely not small. They're loud. They're noisy. They're too tall. They're too large. They're downright messy. They're ugly, folks. They're just ugly. But they need the power. They're going to have to drive the driverless cars. They're going to have to get the Internet of Things, virtual reality, but that's not what it's all about. That's what they're telling you, but that's not what it's really all about. So here's some more in these cell phone towers, but neighbors are very much upset, and we're going to try and bring that to them. See how they're installing them. When I went to the installation and I talked to the people about it, there were unmarked trucks, and they said, "It's none of your business what we're doing here." I said, "Who are you?" He looked at me, and they all looked like military guys, folks. They're all very well in shape, no fat guys around, and I'm going to try and see in the next install if I can get more from them. But the carriers are proposed inappropriate large quasi-monopolies and large equipments as small cells. That's part of how they get away with, oh, it's just a small cell. No, these are monstrosities going in, folks. So here we can see over in Palo Alto, this is April 23rd, 2017. Here you can see that how these are going to be laid out. Small cell 4G antennas with fake mailbox power supplies in Palo Alto. The high-density 4G distribution antenna system, now that's different from the 5G, and the 19 so-called small cell antennas installed in high-density fashion in 3-block by 6-block areas. Their antennas and their faux mailbox power supply cabinets were deployed by Palo Alto Sidewalks by Crown Castle on behalf of Verizon Construction. On April 21st, 2017, we measured the radio frequency microwaves on the sidewalks beneath and near the DAS antennas using a professionally certified RF milliwatt radiation meter. And we're going to get into that in a minute, but I just wanted to show you the deployment of how these are going to be everywhere, coming to everyone, all right? Now, this is what happened in Santa Rosa, my neighborhood where I'm at right now, and this was January 12th, just about a week ago, and people are starting to get a little bit upset because they're starting to see these ugly things just going up. There's no public discourse, and here you can see that even the city council had no idea what they were going to look like. A city-sanctioned bid to improve wireless connectivity for the internet and cell phone users has run into opposition from residents and generated concern among city officials that the first round of small cell antennas went up on utility poles in recent weeks. The equipment, including large metal in-ground utility boxes about 5 feet tall, varies greatly in design from anything the city was previously shown by Verizon. That's the old right-hand, left-hand magic trick. We frankly, as a city, were also surprised by what these looked like. That they look nothing like what we had discussed with Verizon for our utility city streetlights, or even the pictures that we shared with the council on installations on wooden poles. Monroe said it was not her who scrawled the word no in black paint on the Verizon units, this referring to an activist who does not want it there. Santa Rosa's had enough going on, folks. Santa Rosa agreement with Verizon, approved in a 7-0 city vote by city council last year, calls for 72 of these antennas to be installed across the city. A move that came after a 2016 study ranked Santa Rosa 4th worst in the country out of 125 cities for wireless network speed and reliability. That's bullshit. We connect fine. Verizon's poor data performance was a major factor in the Santa Rosa being at the bottom. No, they're being targeted. Officials also reached out to AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint, but no applications were provided. See how they're doing the monopoly? Verizon's the only one bidding. They go to the other guys, they say, we're not interested. Verizon has to do it. Verizon spokesman Heidi Flatto said that 30 of the antennas will be mounted on city-owned streetlights and 42 will be placed on utility poles. So far, the city has issued 38 permits and 15 of the installations are in the construction phase. The work is set to extend through early next year. So this is from steelintheair.com, April 11, 2017, Ken Schmidt. The wireless industry alleges, without providing any quantitative analysis, that most municipalities are applying costly, antiquated macro cell regulations to small cell applications. While many smaller municipalities do not have small cell policies in place at the time, that is because wireless carriers aren't building many small cells in small towns and villages. But large municipalities have begun to implement small cell regulation. At the same time, the wireless industry's applicants can't even submit consistent small cell applications to their municipalities. It's blatantly hypocritical. For example, some cities report receiving location maps showing new small cells in the middle of ponds or on footbridges or in the areas that are under another city or another jurisdiction. Some applicants are not even submitting site-specific applications, instead submitting the same drawings over and over again. What the industry installs looks vastly different from what they say is possible. You might remember the photo about the fast food company showing what the food looks like on TV and what it actually gets in when you buy it. And they don't tell you about all the GMOs and nanoparticulate matters and other crap they put in this stuff. Similarly, the wireless industry glossy pictures show an idealized implementation that is far different from reality. The reports showcase integrated poles with small cells contained with distributed antenna systems nodes with an off-site equipment hub. These appear slim and relatively attractive. However, when these similar wireless carriers or small cell companies submit the actual drawings and applications, the installations do not look anything like those pretty glossy pictures. See the difference, folks? This is how they get you. Secondly, in many cases, the applicant omit to mention any part of the equipment that's to be mounted nearer to the pole, near or on the pole, either because they're rushed or because they don't want to answer objections. The municipality is left holding the bag, inspecting each constructed small cell in order to confirm whether the applicant exceeded what they had authorized to install. Don't believe this actually happens? Look below to see what the industry submitted as a photo simulation versus what was eventually used. Once a small cell or DAS node is attached to a pole, the wireless carriers have the right under Section 6409A of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act. What does that have to do with cell phones? To expand their equipment. In other words, listen to this. Once a site is built, municipalities have little power to restrict further expansions of the pole's small cell antenna equipment if the applicants stay within the limits of 6409A. Moreover, wireless companies can request to expand an unlimited number of times. So even if a small cell starts off looking small and svelte, it could be expanded in size immediately without the municipality being able to stop the expansion. This can happen over and over again. Historically, we estimate that most cities rarely receive more than 50 applications for new wireless sites per year. Even in the boom years 2008 to 10, cities received just 150 applications for new wireless facilities. Today, we have confirmed the city of Houston has received over 700 applications. Now that's 700 versus 50. In 2016 alone for small cell infrastructure. They're going in everywhere. Without standardization by industry, these applications cannot be reviewed easily. Cisco in 2017 indicated that video currently makes up 60% of mobile traffic. They forecast that 3/4 of the world's mobile data traffic will be video by 2021. Video traffic represents 55% of LTE 5G traffic now, but is expected to grow 95% of the mobile traffic data by 2001. Cisco states further that 50 billion Internet of Things devices will be connected to the Internet within 5 years. However, only 1.5 billion of these devices will have cellular connectivity. What's the other 3.5 billion for, folks? We've been forecast from other sources that IoT mobile data will grow to 8% of network. In other words, IoT functionality only drives less than 10% of the bandwidth needed for small cell densification. How many cells are necessary to enable smart city and IoT initiatives versus how many are needed to densify networks for the next generation of fixed wireless to home and mobile video? We are through suggesting that any indication by the wireless industry that 5G and small cell densification is primarily about IoT and smart functions is a half-truth at best. The reality is that small cells densification is more about paid consumer and commercial video than it is about the IoT or smart cities. We're going to get into smart cities in a minute. 20 plus representatives of wireless and tower companies each cited exchanged questions. So they had the municipalities and the wireless companies provide questions, 30 to 40 questions to the city. The city provided a list of 15 to 20 questions to the industry. The city's questions were straightforward. The city responded to all the industry's questions without substantive detail. In return, only one company responded to the city's questions, and most of these concerns were cop-outs, claims they could not answer due to competitive concerns. Now, remember how we said where Verizon was the only one in Santa Rosa and all the others would not even bid on it? Competitive, my ass. Health hazards. This is from the Scientists for Wired Technology, advocacy based on scientists' research of the hazards of pulsed, data-modulated radio frequency microwave radiation. None of it's good. All right, so April 23rd, 2017, 19 small cell antennas were in fake mill, and here's the locations. On April 21st, 2017, they did measurements of radio frequency microwave radiation. The results show that these antennas are forcibly exposing Palo Alto, California residents near Stanford, workers and visitors, to hazardous levels of RF microwave radiation. RF radiation measurements, unbelievably, are the only actual RF microwave radiation measurements ever completed for this project. And we have to do it independently. Look at all the sites, folks. They're going everywhere, and they go private property. The red dots on this map represent 19 so-called small cell antennas that are forcibly exposing Palo Alto residents, workers, and visitors to extremely hazardous levels of radio frequency radiation. The screen of the HF 59 meter radiation readings of 72,000 to 123,000 microwatts per square meter when standing on the sidewalk below the small cells. Applying the correction factor for high-speed pulse digital signals of 4G LTE, the peak levels radiation are actually over 720,000 to 1.23 million microwatts per square meter. So what does that mean? In 2016, the National Toxicology Program study on carcinogenesis of RF microwave radiation, Dr. Melnick, the lead designer of the study, said risk is determined from both the dosimetry, which is the absorbed power, time of exposure versus the tumor response. Because of the large number of exposed human users worldwide, even a small increase in the risk of exposure propensities that may be close to what humans experience could result in a large number of people developing RF radiation-induced tumor with long exposure. 2016 study. The 1996 Telecommunication Act, written by the wireless industry guidelines, did not include any about exposure over time. The lobbyists and FCC regulators wrote into law fraudulent, scientifically unsound RF microwave exposure guidelines based on a rate of exposure, not based on the total exposure over time. Now remember, these things are going to be going 24/7, 365 days, right outside your door, private property, everywhere, public places, stores, malls, everywhere. This obvious trick is considered utter nonsense by competent physicians or PhD biologists working in the field. Substantial scientific evidence, over 25,000 studies, have proven immediate and direct short-term biological damages to radiation exposure levels far below what we measured on the Palo Alto sidewalks. These long-term biological damages are caused by microwave radiation. Exposure's adverse effects to the blood, the brain, the heart, the hormones, sleep and neurological functions, including tinnitus, insomnia, difficulty concentrating, heart palpitations, and suppressions of melatonin. Melatonin is a critically important hormone needed to fight cancer and maintain circadian rhythms. All this has been established in tens of thousands of peer-reviewed scientific studies, and these adverse bioeffects are seen in radiofrequency microwave radiation levels far below the scientifically discredited FCC radiation guidelines. The long-term hazards, early dementia, and deadly cancers of brain, heart, breast, colon, and testicles. Who does this benefit? GDP, Wall Street, Big Pharma, hospitals. They all benefit, as well as the Georgia Guidestones, which we'll get into. Doses explained. So here we see the severe hazards of 10 microwatts to 1,000 microwatts or greater than 1,000 microwatts. Now remember what they measured? 720,000 microwatts in the public domain where you walk by, your children walk by. The one they installed was right outside the yoga studio I used to go to when they moved the yoga studio, thank God. But these are going everywhere, folks. Everywhere in the world, and it's extremely hazardous. So remember, this is the only measurement they've gone by. So microwatt means microwatt, or 1/1,000,000th of a watt per square meter. 1/1,000,000th of a watt. Think about that. All right, so here they're going in downtown Palo Alto, right near Stanford, and look what they're doing, folks. Here it is right outside people's homes. You have no protest. You have no right. What do you think your property values are going to do when they find out that massive radiation devices that are extreme exposure and health harm is sitting right outside your children's windows? And it goes on. These measurements are incredible. This is taken from City Hall across Bryant Street. These are fake mailbox power supplies. All right, so these guys, thank God for these people doing this. The screen on the HF59B meter, radiation reading of 38,000 microwatts while standing 75 feet away from the small cell tower. Applying the correction factor, they get a radiation of 380,000 microwatts. Let me remind you again, 1,000 microwatts is extreme danger. Same picture. Here's one of the fake mailboxes. Here's their media readings. The foam mailbox exposes people to magnetic fields of 5 milligas or higher. Because the mailbox lacks warning signs, anyone can lean against this cabinet in the public right away and just absorb cancer-causing radiation microwaves. The screen shows another peak level here at another location, 720,000, extreme health ranges. See these big plugs? These are like the ones we have as well. Again, many of these cell power supplies were installed near public benches or bus stops. See the bus stop? Here's the radiation machine right next to them. Who takes buses? People with less incomes. The screen on the edge shows the radiation peak levels right here on a reading next to the bus stop. 810,000 microwatts. It'll kill you. It is killing us. Look at this, the trees. The trees are being affected and damaged. Look at the dead trees right here. All caused by these radiation machines. Are you angry yet? It's affecting everyone, folks. It's coming to all of us. 880,000 they measured on these polls. Here's another one of these boxes as well. Peak levels, 960,000. 960,000 readings on these, folks. Look at outside a yoga studio. Who are they intending to target, folks? The health practitioners. Radiation over 1 million microwatts beneath this small cell tower. This is extreme health hazards. We should be screaming. The small antenna is 12 feet from a second-story balcony. It's a severe health hazard. What about the people that live there? Do they have a right to know? I hope you get angry with this, because I'm very angry with this, and it needs to stop, and needs to stop right away. And it goes on and on and on. And again, thank you for these scientists, these concerned scientists who want to get things wired, professionally measured, can't be denied. Look at this, 1.23 million. It's crazy, folks. Palo Alto watches RF microwaves hazardous exposures. And here you can see the follow-up. This is December 1st, 2017, by these wonderful people who are doing the work that needs to be done. And here's all their reports, and they submitted them to the city councils with questions to the city of Palo Alto about the dangers of their citizens. And what did they get back? Crickets, silence, and Wi-Fi. Children, man, they're the worst. Their bodies are still developing, and they're going to be sick for life. So they emailed all these to all the staff members. I'll put this in the show notes. You're welcome to do it yourself if you live in Palo Alto or are concerned. But basically, all their questions were not answered, not answered, not answered, not answered, not answered, not answered, not answered. These people need to be frog marched into jail. Well, and so do the telecommunications companies, so do the lobbyists, so do the governors and senators, so do all the officials who look the other way on this stuff. It is criminal, and it needs to stop now, or we're just going to have mass deaths on our hands. But first, everybody's going to get really sick, so big pharma, big hospital, GDP, and Wall Street can hit new highs. This has to end, folks, and I hope you're outraged. All right, let's get into what they're planning for smart cities. This is only the beginning. Sad to say. Sad to report.
Yeah, until now.
But this hasn't been revealed yet, or people don't accept it
Right.
yet. This kind of no-touch torture and silent death. But yeah, I think the program has been expanded since then to include all classifications of human beings. This is worldwide. I just did an interview with a major news agency for South Korea, and they're saying it's rampant there. Russia has a huge population. China has a huge population.
But in the future, every square inch of every city will be alive with intelligence. Because every street and every building will have a network of microcomputers built right into them. Dr. Chris Piester calls it smart dust.
A smart dust particle, or mote, is a wireless sensor with sensing, computation, communication, and power in one package.
These all-in-one microcomputers will be small, very small.
The size of a mote today is about the size of a grain of rice. And we've shown that we can make the circuitry small enough and light enough that eventually it will be possible to make things that are on a sub-millimeter size scale.
Tiny specks of computer smart dust will form a vast invisible network that can help manage the infrastructure of even the largest city.
Smart cities in the future will take this low-power, inexpensive, small technology and basically distribute it everywhere.
But smart dust will also allow buildings and streets to recognize you and respond accordingly.
I think increasingly the environment will respond to who we are and adapt in consequence.
The city will know where you are if you want it to.
Your workplace will know you. Smart dust at the entrance will boot up your computer. And smart dust embedded in the elevator doors will automatically ring your floor.
Smart dust is going to sense the environment and allow us to improve the way that we live our lives.
No matter how we live in the future city, it will be radical.
5G and smart cities. Tillman Global Holdings is partnering up with Verizon, AT&T, and the other scumbags that are rolling this stuff out. Tillman Holdings is a U.S.-based global investment firm, Its portfolio is associated, spans 5 continents, over a dozen countries, and telecommunications infrastructure, owning and managing over 10,000 macro towers, 1 million urban locations for small cells, renewable energy, and digital cities. We are led by a team of global executives with proven expertise in cellular tower management, renewable energy, and smart city deployment. So there's much on this. It's important that our states adopt 4 key rules providing the road for non-discriminatory access, mandatory timelines, just and reasonable rates, and an ineffective complaint process for wireless pole attachments. And this goes on to show how they're going to be so cool, and they're just going to install it everywhere, and everybody's going to be really happy with all these cell phones because they're going to get faster downloads. Hey, we're going to be able to talk back and forth at the same time, and you won't have that echo going on or delayed response. Isn't it going to be great? No, it's not. And as you can see from the smart city depiction that we're showing, they got major plans to use this smart dust everywhere. So this is part of the connectivity. It's probably from a think tank, Accenture Strategy. Smart cities, how 5G can help municipalities build vibrant, smart cities. Hey, everybody's going to be so smart. Isn't that great? Well, this goes on to tell how much money is going to be created, how much job growth, blah, blah, blah. It talks nothing about the ill health of anything. Doesn't talk about whether people want it or not. Doesn't talk about what it's really going to be used for in any way, shape, or form. But what it does get into, and here I wanted to show you down here, see how they're selling low cost and everything to them. But here, look what they're going to do in these smart car convoys, right? So you're going to be driving your driverless car and your Uber driverless car or your battery-powered car because they're getting rid of the gas, and that's what Hurricane Harvey was about, destroying the biggest refineries in the world in Port Arthur, Texas. The safe distance without 5G, airflow drag constitutes 50 to 75% of energy. Well, look what they're going to do with these self-driving cars, folks. They're going to be stacking pack'ems. They're going to reduce the drag so you get better fuel economy, blah, blah, and blah. That's how they're selling. Well, they're going to be on metering. They're going to be metering on every light post. Look at the meters. Look, they're going to be on the ground. They're going to be everywhere. Radiation is everywhere. Oh, gunshot detection. Hey, for your safety, we're going to have all these different safety issues for gun stop. Okay, deploying next generation wireless infrastructure. All right. So they're talking about the 4G small cell technology. Now, this isn't the 5G. This is the 4G small cell technology. So the capacity, when a dispatch center doesn't have the capacity to serve a certain client, the nearby centers are able to provide the service. They're going to be able to pass them off. So it's going to be a totally wireless world with electromagnetic energy, radio frequency, microwave energy everywhere you go. So they get into the permitting process street, but I wanted to show you how real this all is. Keeping in mind the telecom operators' expected infrastructure investment is $275 billion for 5G deployment over 7 years, and it's going to create jobs. Well, it's killing people, folks. That's what it's going to be doing. And here you can see again that Tillman Infrastructure is partnering with AT&T and Verizon, and they're entering a joint agreement to build hundreds of cell towers, hundreds and thousands of thousands, and everywhere you live, private property, you can't get away from it. It's going in everywhere unless we stop it now. And one thing I wanted to mention also is all these smart appliances are going to be tied into all these smart wireless small cells going in, because we're going to a smart world. We've got smart trains and we've got smart people doing it. It's smart for them. It's dumb for us, folks. But look at all the appliances all being set up for this new 4G, 5G small cell rollout of cancer-causing major Wi-Fi radiation. But let's get into more of the technicals about what's going on in these meters so you can understand them a little bit better. This is from the IEE Spectrum. Thanks to Deborah Tavares for sending this over to me. Millimeter waves, massive MIMO, full duplex, beamforming, and small cells are just a few of the technologies that will enable ultra-fast 5G networks. Hey, speed, we need it. With 5G, users should be able to download high-definition film in under a second. Yay! And wireless engineers and networks will boost other technologies such as autonomous vehicles, virtual reality, and the Internet of Things. We already showed how that is being limited, and it's not about that. It's very small. It's not a big percentage of what they're doing. It's something much greater than that. It's the culling of humanity, folks. This is what it's about. Telecommunications hope to debut the first commercial 5Gs in the early 2020s. Now, why are they saying it's already here if they're saying here it's going to be out in the early 2020s? 5G is still in the planning stages. Together, these technologies will deliver with less than a millisecond delay and bring peak downloads of 20 gigabits per second compared to 1 gigabit on a 4G. The front runners include millimeter wave, small cells, massive MIMO, full duplex, and beamforming. To understand how 5G will differ from 4G networks, it's helpful to walk through these 5 technologies and consider which will mean for wireless users. Millimeter waves. That's why providers are experimenting with broadcasting on millimeter waves. Remember, the military's had it for over 40 years, which use higher frequencies than radio waves that have long been used for mobile phones. Millimeter waves are broadcast at frequencies between 30 and 300 gigahertz compared to bands below 6 gigahertz. All right? So currently 6 gigahertz, remember 3Gs, 3 gigahertz, 4Gs, 4 gigahertz, 30 to 300 gigahertz. This was radar systems used millimeter waves for real-world applications. Small cells, like we've been talking about. Small cells are portable miniature base stations that require minimal power to operate. No, they don't. I showed you all those power cables, the power boxes, the battery backups, the mailboxes that are designed to use the power. No, they're not. They use a ton of power, and they're placed every 250 meters or so throughout the cities. No, we're showing them how they're through every 10 to 15 homes they're planning to put them on, with eventually being in every home. To prevent signals from being dropped, carriers could install thousands of these stations in a city to form a dense network that acts like a relay team, receiving signals from other base stations and sending data to users at any location. Traditional cell networks come to rely on an increasing number of base stations. Achieving 5G performance will require even greater infrastructure. Antennas and small cells can much smaller than traditional antennas if they're transmitting tiny millimeter waves. The size difference makes it even easier to stick cells on light poles and atop buildings and cause cancer. There's a problem, though. The sheer number of small cells required to build a 5G network make it hard to set up in rural areas. Let's move to the country, folks. All right, massive MIMO. MIMO stands for multiple input, multiple output. Today's 4G base stations have dozen ports for antennas that can handle all cellular traffic, 8 transmitters, and 4 for receivers. 5G stations can support 100 ports, which means more antennas can fit on a single array. That capability means a base station could send and receive signals from many more users at once, increasing the capacity of mobile networks by a factor of 22 times or greater. That's also increasing radiation and microwave radiation, folks. The technology called MIMO, for multiple input, multiple output, describes wireless systems to 2 or more transmitters and receivers to send and receive more data at once. MIMO is found on some 4G base stations. Installing so many more antennas to handle cellular traffic also causes more interference and cancer if those signals cross. That's why 5G stations must incorporate beamforming. What is beamforming? Beamforming is the primary challenge for MIMOs to reduce interference while transmitting more information from many more antennas at once. The MIMO base station signal processing algorithms plot the best transmission route through the air to each user. They then can send individual data packets in many different directions, bouncing them off buildings and other objects and people in a precisely coordinated pattern. By choreographing the packet's movements and arrival time, beamforming allows many users and antennas on a massive MIMO array, to exchange much more information at once. Cellular signals are easily blocked by objects and tend to weaken over long distances. This is very important to understand right here. Deborah Tavares is working on some information on why they're taking down all the trees here everywhere, with all the fires going around the world, taking down the trees there. Line of sight, folks. They're going to have line of sight because these things don't transmit very far, and trees and shrubs can block it. So it's very important to understand the big picture. In this case, beamforming can help focusing a signal in a concentrated beam that points in only the direction of the user rather than broadcasting in many directions. Full duplex. With 5G, a transceiver will be able to transmit and receive data at the same time on the same frequency. This is known as full duplex. This is about getting so you can talk at the same time and you don't have that pause that goes on in cell phones today. That's one of the things. Experts have assembled silicon transistors that act like high-speed switches to halt the backward roll of these waves, enabling them to transmit and receive signals on the same frequency at once. Expecting an antenna to both speak and listen at the same time is only possible with special echo-canceling technology. With these and other 5G technologies, engineers hope to build wireless network that future smartphone users, VR gamers, and autonomous cars will rely on every day. Already, researchers and companies have set up high expectations for 5G by promising ultra-low latency and record-breaking data speeds for consumers. Hey, yay consumers, you're all going to die.
You will find quite soon that electrical signals start to be picked up by the chips. The brain cells connect not only to the chips, but they also start to put out feelers to each other. They connect to each other, they connect to the chip. You get a biodigital device. I'm telling you history, my friends. You tell me the future. These devices have been grown for the last 5 to 10 years. So could we have a human brain that can go online? This is history. We already did it in animals. We have rats and mice that can think electrically. They produce currents and thoughts which go from one mouse to another. The mouse says, I'm thirsty, and a signal electronically goes to another mouse in another laboratory saying, please, can you give me a drink? If the other mouse agrees to give the first mouse a drink, he gets some food. We are living in a strange world. I am not saying that you're going to have a plug-in module for mathematics in the future or language. I'm just saying we are entering new territory for the future.
Inside the brain, here are human nerve cells growing onto the surface of an RFID type chip. Human brain cells don't need to be taught to do this. They are genetically programmed to work with computers. In fact, they love computers. Here's an example. Here is a chip. There's the chip. You put the brain tissue on and it organizes itself. The brain cells work their way in and they start communicating with each other and with the brain of the PC. So it means we can have thinking computers. Maybe 10 trillion of these devices every few years entering the environment. You're talking about total knowledge of consumer behavior watched in real time and huge business opportunities. Why? Because it means we can then start to predict human behavior.
Now, if you want to understand the agenda behind.
The second group of materials found in these environmental samples is unidentifiable fibers. And I really want you to appreciate the meaning of unidentifiable. These fibers have been sent to sophisticated laboratories and there is nothing in the databases that match them. These are fibers, we could say, that do not exist in nature.
So we have highly transparent nanoparticles. They have a refraction that is 4 times higher than the one of diamonds. That if you look it up on Wikipedia, you can read there. And not only that the nerve itself becomes sensitive, also the barium-strontium titanate nanocrystals. They display barium and strontium on their surface from the crystalline structure, and the new built nerves kind of grow onto the crystal. So what you get is a new connecting point for the nervous system that is piezoelectric. And whenever this is receiving a signal, it's firing electrons. So you have a direct access to the nervous system of the human being. This is one nanobot that you can find in the literature, which is not about military technology, but already about controlling the civil population of countries by accessing their nervous system to introduce signals.
But what I'm concerned about mainly is the medical effect, and that's because of this very strong connection between aluminum passing through this pathway into the brain is so strongly connected with Alzheimer's disease and other diseases of memory. If you're aerosolizing this and spraying literally tons of it over the world, and people are constantly breathing that aerosolized, nano-sized aluminum, which will easily penetrate filters in your air-conditioned system, enter your home. So you're breathing it 24 hours a day, producing high levels of aluminum in this part of the brain, and the consequences could be absolutely devastating. Could cause a huge increase in Alzheimer's disease and inflammatory neurological disorders. I watched YouTube, which was a geoengineering conference that the government had put on. And in the conference, one of the questions somebody in the audience asked, well, what is the medical effect of spraying aluminum in the atmosphere? And the speaker said, well, we don't really know, but we're in the process of researching that. Well, of course, that was an absolute lie. We do know what it does.
Right.
But
That's all I got for now, folks. I hope this was educational and disturbing, got your panties in a bunch, and get you mad enough that you're going to do something about it, because it's coming wherever you live. This is part of the satanic evil plan that few in the lower levels understand what's really going on. But there are such advanced technologies. They're so far ahead of anything we're being told or shown. But the smart cities, the cell phones, small cell towers, these are buckyballs arranged in nanotechnology. They're so far advanced, and now they're deploying their end game. This is World War III. It started with 9/11, and it's a war on humanity. It's a war on us all. This is what all the geoengineering is about. This is what all the antennas going in are about. They're basically going to fry us where we live in our homes. They're going to give us massive amounts of cancer, and they're going to control the populations at will. They're going to control our appliances. They're going to control humanity. They're going to create a beehive using our minds and coordinating our minds together. And if you don't think this is their plan, think again. Speak out. Be heard. Do not let this go undone. So let's stop at the madness. It's plain truth. Peace out. We'll catch you next video.
For Jesus Christ is my witness. This life you're living wasn't meant for you. It shouldn't have to feel this way, but when you play the games you play, sooner or later, boy, you're gonna lose. You wake up, you get high, out drinking all night, brothering, what you think you're doing? You got me wondering why, praying to God you're alive, got your boys going insane. Now as it's time to start to get rough, and you feel you're losing love, it's cause you never took the time to trust the one and only man above. My friend, you gotta wake up, brother, open your eyes. You gotta wake up, it's time